What do you do when the family you've tried so hard to fit into turns their back on you, leaving you with nothing but betrayal and heartbreak? The words my mother-in-law spoke echoed in my mind, leaving me in stunned silence. "You need to leave," she said coldly, her gaze like ice. "Birch and Maple are coming for the birth, and we don't need you anymore." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. After all the years of trying to be accepted, I was being told to leave without warning. The shock of it all left me speechless, my heart breaking as I realized that I was no longer part of the family. Everything I'd worked for, every sacrifice, seemed meaningless now. I stood there frozen, in disbelief at what my mother-in-law had just said. "Since Birch and Maple are returning for a hometown childbirth, please vacate," she stated, her voice as cold as ever. "Her eldest son and his wife are due in 3 days." "Me? Leave?" I asked, still processing what I was hearing. I felt confused, shocked, and above all, hurt. "Yes," she replied, her gaze icy. "We don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while now. Birch and his family will be living here, so make sure you're gone by tomorrow." My heart sank. Never had I imagined this day would come, the day they would tell me to leave. Since marrying Oak, I had always known that I wasn't fully accepted into the family, but I had never expected them to be so direct in their rejection. "You barren failure," my mother-in-law snapped. "You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We owe you nothing anymore. It seems like Oak is tired of you too." I struggled to swallow. "What's Oak to?" I began, my voice trembling. But the words caught in my throat. It was clear now. This wasn't just about me. This was a plot between my mother-in-law and Birch. If it wasn't, then why would my husband stay silent? If this was their decision, then it seemed foolish to continue pretending everything was normal. Perhaps it was time to walk away from it all. But what about the house? What would happen to it now that they had made their choice? It was no longer my concern. Let them face the consequences of their actions. I, Willow Thompson, am 45 years old. I had been living with my husband and mother-in-law in a popular area close to the station, a location with excellent access to the city center. When we were house hunting, Oak, who had recently been promoted to a managerial position, insisted on finding a spacious apartment. The rent was high, but the space, the rooms, it all seemed worth it. My husband, Oak, was 8 years older than me and a divorcee. We met through a mutual friend, and I was comforted by his warm, caring nature traits that only seemed to deepen with age. After dating for 2 years, we decided to marry. Even after I disclosed that I couldn't have children due to a past illness, Oak's affection never wavered. Likewise, I didn't let his past, the fact that he had a son, Birch, from his previous marriage, deter me. "I'm truly sorry to ask you, someone who has never been married, to live with my parents and son," Oak had said to me when we first discussed our future. "I won't make you suffer. I'll ensure you're happy." To make sure I felt comfortable, Oak suggested we move into a spacious apartment so I could have my own room. "Birch, turning 10 this year, won't need much care with my mom around," he said. "You don't have to push yourself." After Oak's divorce, his parents helped with childcare, but a few years later, when Oak's father passed away, his mother became Birch's primary caretaker. From the moment I met Birch, he barely made eye contact with me. I thought it might be a sign of shyness, or that he was approaching a difficult age. I didn't worry. As long as they accepted me as a member of the household, I was content. My mother-in-law had always been quiet and refined. When I visited to formally introduce myself after our engagement, she treated me with kindness and politeness, making me think we would get along fine living together. But now, everything had changed. The reality of their rejection hit me all at once. "I'll continue to prepare the meals as I have been. Oak comes home late, so it's okay if we eat at different times, right, Willow? I'll leave the cleaning and laundry to you, all right? Let's work well together." After getting married, I switched from a full-time employee at the pharmacy to a part-timer due to the division of household chores. I started work a bit later in the morning, so I wouldn't get home until nearly 8 p.m. Dinner was always ready when I arrived, making me feel good about living together. My mother-in-law and Birch usually had dinner before I got home, so I was always eating alone. Even after getting married, I sometimes felt a sense of, is this it? But I came to accept that this was our family style. From the beginning, my mother-in-law never really liked me and didn't consider me part of the family at all. Birch, the school's activity day is before summer, right? When is it? We're all going to see you sometime. After getting married, I tried to break the ice with Birch, who still hadn't warmed up to me. No, I mean, as Birch faltered, my mother-in-law interjected, "We'll go there. Just Oak and me, Willow. You don't need to worry about it." I misunderstood her words, thinking she was just being considerate. "I can get the day off work. Let's all go together." "You don't need that. You're Oak's wife, and Birch's family has always been just Oak and me." I was quite shocked. When I brought it up with my husband at night, he said, "Mom's been clinging to Birch. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her eventually." I began to join as a mother at the activity day, but Birch and I rarely spend any time together outside of school events. Sometimes I could tell Birch wanted to say something, but my mother-in-law always cut in between us. I later found out that she had been bad-mouthing me to Birch. Willow said she could be happy with Oak if Birch weren't around. "She's a terrible person. Dad must be deceived by her too." If a boy in his formative years hears such things, it wouldn't be strange for him to distrust me. It was a sickening story, but at that time, I hadn't imagined that my mother-in-law could do such a thing. After graduating high school, Birch immediately moved in with his girlfriend and left home as soon as he started college. A year after he started working, he married her without a ceremony. After Birch moved out, I couldn't help but notice how dramatically my mother-in-law's behavior changed. Surprisingly, she stopped doing any housework altogether. It was as though her sole focus shifted to picking on me. She stopped cooking, something she used to do without fail, and instead, she would sit at the dining table, waiting for me to come home. The moment I entered the house, there was no time to sit down and relax. I'd head straight to the kitchen to prepare dinner. "You're really inefficient. At this rate, it'll take you all night," she remarked as I struggled with the cooking. I wasn't particularly skilled in the kitchen, having relied on her for meal preparations for so long. Every time I tried, she would taste my food and immediately complain, "This tastes awful." "I'm sorry. I'm trying my best," I would say, feeling a wave of frustration. "You're astonishingly tone-deaf when it comes to flavors, Willow. It's a good thing Birch never had to eat this. How terrible," she would say, the sarcasm laced in her words. If she was so displeased, I thought, why not make it herself? But it seemed her purpose was less about the meal and more about criticizing me. It didn't stop there. She began nitpicking things I never had to handle before, like cleaning and laundry. "Why are there so many wrinkles on the laundry? You have to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right? Didn't your family teach you anything?" She sighed, as if I was the cause of her problems. Hearing her insult me, especially about my family, made my blood boil. I clenched my fists in frustration, but I tried to hold it all in. "I don't know how you won over Oak, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman," she'd add. And then, always finishing with the same line, "If you hadn't come, Birch would have never left." I started to realize that there was something deeper going on with her, perhaps the hole left by Birch moving out. Maybe it was what they called empty nest syndrome. I convinced myself that if taking out her frustration on me made her feel better, I could endure it. But everything changed after one particular event. The event that shifted everything was Birch's announcement that his wife, Maple, was pregnant. My mother-in-law's excitement was overwhelming, something I had never seen before. "It's Birch's baby! It's going to be adorable! Yeah, he'll be my first grandchild," she beamed. Watching them both rejoice, I shared in their happiness. But my mother-in-law's excitement was beyond anything I had ever imagined. It seemed even more intense because Birch had asked her, "Grandma, can Maple have the baby at your place? Maple's family lives an hour away, and since they have no one else here, they've turned to us for help with the preparations." Of course, My mother-in-law could never say no to Birch. Once the news sank in, her joy skyrocketed, and the phone calls from Birch started to become frequent. The next day, she dove into preparations with zeal, cleaning out Birch's room, preparing bedding, and even making a list of baby items. It was as if she had caught some kind of grandchild fever. Naturally, I found myself swept up in the madness too. When I came home from work one evening, she had already started organizing everything. "Willow, I vacuumed Birch's room, so now you need to wipe the floors, clean the windows, and please wax them too. This weekend, we're going to the department store to look at baby cribs," she said, her tone filled with the kind of command I had come to dread. It felt as though I had been replaced in every way, first by Birch, then by Maple, and now by this impending new arrival. But this time, I wasn't just a passive participant. I could feel my patience wearing thin, but I chose to continue doing what I had to do, quietly keeping my thoughts to myself, trying to find a way through the chaos. Cleaning and waxing at night was tough, especially after a long day at work. If I even thought about cutting corners, I'd be told to do it over again. Moreover, my mother-in-law started asking for money, and before I knew it, the house was overflowing with baby stuff. "Willow, I need you to withdraw some money tomorrow. There are things I want to get ready for the baby." "Again? Isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Maple and Birch haven't even arrived? Shouldn't we wait and choose together with them?" I had wanted to meet my mother-in-law's requests, but I was troubled by the relentless spending. "How can you be so cold? It's Oak's grandchild." "Oh, that's right. You're not related to Birch by blood. You don't care, do you?" "That's not true. Please don't say that. I just thought Maple might want to pick things out herself." "When do you want to choose things for your own child?" Perhaps because I was making a valid point, my mother-in-law glared at me sharply. I immediately thought I had gone too far, but it was too late. Without a word, my mother-in-law went back to her room looking upset. I did reflect on it, but I was also shocked to be spoken about in such a way regarding my infertility. The next morning, my mother-in-law didn't come out of her room, perhaps still angry. Oak had a 3-day business trip starting that day, so he just called out, "I'm leaving," through her door. "Please don't throw cold water on Mom's great-grandchild fever. She hasn't been the same since Birch left. You were worried too, right?" "I was, but if we spend all our money like this, we'll have nothing left when Birch and Maple arrive, right?" Oak's face immediately turned sour. "Are you saying my earnings are too low?" "That's not what I'm saying at all." Oak just said, "Fine," and left with a look of dissatisfaction. Discussions about money always end up like this. Since I'm the one managing our finances, I can't help but think ahead. Of course, there's a reason for that. We've been married for 13 years. Oak has provided me with a very comfortable life. "Your part-time income is for you to enjoy," Oak had always told me. So, I saved everything beyond what I needed for myself. Even though it's in my name, I consider it our shared property. But then, Oak's company's performance declined, and over the last 5 years, his salary has dropped to 2/3 of what it was when we first got married. While there's uncertainty whether his company will last until his retirement, he doesn't seem to consider changing jobs. For appearances in front of my mother-in-law, my husband couldn't give up his title as a department head. Now I'm the one paying the rent, and he covers the living expenses. We've kept this from my mother-in-law to save my husband's face. That day I left work a bit early to apologize to my mother-in-law. When I got home, she was already sitting at the dining table waiting for me. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I may have gone too far," I admitted. But my mother-in-law remained silent. Instead, she blindsided me with unexpected news. "Birch and Maple are returning for a hometown childbirth. Please vacate," my mother-in-law declared in a chilly tone. The eldest son and his wife were set to arrive in 3 days. Perplexed and stunned, I asked, "I have to leave?" She affirmed, "Yes, we don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while. Birch and his family will be living here. Make sure you're out by tomorrow." The realization hit me hard. I had never truly been accepted into the family. Since the day I got married, I had always been treated as an outsider. The news of Birch's return for the birth made it clear. "You barren failure," my mother-in-law continued. "You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Oak is tired of you too. Maybe he's getting along well with a new girlfriend by now." Shocked, I gulped down my saliva, contemplating the possibility of my relationship with my husband growing distant. Could this be a trap I fell into? Thinking my husband would never, and I remembered that up until a year ago, he never had overnight business trips. "All right, I'll get it done tonight," I said, grabbing my bag and leaving the house to walk aimlessly. I needed to calm my severely shaken heart. Worried about my husband, I tried calling his cell phone. Despite my mother-in-law's words, I still wanted to talk to him, but he didn't answer no matter how many times I rang. I dialed his office only to learn that he had taken a couple of days off. My mother-in-law's words began to ring more true. Could he really be on a trip with another woman? Dark thoughts crowded my mind, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face. Staggering along, I noticed the tavern behind the station, a place we used to frequent when we first moved here. "It's still here," I thought as I entered. "Welcome." The tavern owner's expression clouded briefly upon seeing me, then he nodded in recognition. "Hey, long time no see." "It's been about 8 years. I used to come here a lot with my husband," I said. "Yes, it's been a while. I remember you," he replied. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of relief. "Can I get a beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please?" I asked the owner. He, as usual, was a man of few words, but nodded in response. I took a sip of the cold beer, letting its chill settle in, while savoring the grilled chicken in front of me. As I relaxed, I pulled out my phone, and the screensaver flashed a photo of Birch on his 18th birthday, looking sharp in the slim suit we'd picked out together. A pang of longing hit me as I wished we could have been closer as a family. The beer helped wash down the heaviness in my chest, taking the sting of the day's heartache with it. Could I really leave tomorrow? I thought to myself, my mind running through the next steps. I pulled up moving companies on my phone, booked one for the following day, and saved 2 junk buyers for later. Changing the screensaver felt like a cleansing act, the image on my phone no longer tainting my thoughts. The food and beer tasted incredible, but the weight of everything was still there. I decided I'd sort things out when I got home. As I was leaving the tavern, a voice called out to me from behind. A young waitress, breathless from running, caught up with me. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thompson?" she asked, confirming my identity when I glanced at her confused expression. She dropped the bombshell that shook me to my core. My husband was having an affair with one of their employees. We exchanged contact details, and she promised to keep me updated. Her words echoed my mother-in-law's earlier accusations. Instead of feeling devastated, a sharp and unrelenting anger rose within me. It was time to face this head-on. I didn't waste another second. I immediately booked the moving company for the following day and made up my mind to leave that day. Whether it was a conspiracy involving my mother-in-law and Birch, or my husband's betrayal was his own doing, I didn't owe him anything anymore. Back home, I began packing without hesitation, and by midnight, I had everything ready to go. The movers arrived exactly on time. I made my intentions clear. I was leaving for good. They took everything I had bought, erasing every trace of me from that house. My mother-in-law panicked, but I stood firm. "I'm taking everything I bought. You can start fresh tomorrow," I said, suppressing a laugh at the absurdity of it all. She complained loudly, but there was nothing she could do. All that was left behind were piles of baby gear and her old dresser pieces of her life that predated our marriage. "Well then, I bid you farewell. There should be no trace of me left. Enjoy your life with Oak, Birch, and his family," I declared before walking out, leaving her stunned behind me. I left the keys on the table as I exited the house. The movers took my things, and I stayed with a colleague for a while, feeling a strange sense of completion. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in a long while. A week passed before I heard from my husband. I couldn't help but wonder if he was scheming with that other woman. While he hesitated, I received a call from the young woman at the tavern. "I got a photo. I'll send it to you," she said. The photo showed my husband chatting up a much older woman at the tavern. Perhaps out of a sense of justice, the young woman must have followed them after they closed. Attached was another photo, this time of the two of them entering a hotel. I stared at the photos, feeling a cold emptiness wash over me. Even now, the cheating continues, I thought bitterly. Any last flicker of affection I had for my husband faded in an instant. I asked for the woman's name and had her address looked up. The next day, armed with all the evidence of the affair, my husband called. "Willow, where are you? Birch and his family are here too. Aren't you going to come home soon?" "No, I'm not coming back. Your mom told me to leave. I'm done here. Birch and his family are going to live with you now, right?" I knew it. Birch and his family were out of money and looking to crash at our place. I heard that after graduating from a vocational school, they've been hopping from job to job and now they're working part-time. "No, I want you back, Willow. I went to the pharmacy and they said you're off for a bit." "Oh, played to crash, yeah, I'm fine. So don't worry about me. Your mom and Birch didn't like me, right? I reckon they're happy to have the place to themselves without me around." My snide comment left my husband speechless. He knew his mother and Birch never accepted me as family, but pretended not to see it. "Well, all right, I have something to say, so I'll come back there." Once my husband replied with a relieved please in his voice. Days later, I returned to the house for the first time in a long while. Some new pieces of furniture and appliances were inside. When Birch and Maple saw me, they just nodded from their seats on the sofa without getting up. As I took a seat, my mother-in-law glared at me with a scary look on her face. The atmosphere was tense, and just as I thought to get things done and leave quickly, Birch spoke up. "What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you and you've had it easy." I sighed. "I took everything because I paid for it. I wanted to remove all traces of me just as you wanted, right?" "That's crazy. There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy." My husband said. When I glanced at him, he started talking as if he'd resigned himself. "We've been getting by on what Willow and I both make for a little while now. Then the stuff you took should be both yours instead of just yours." Instead of my speechless husband, I decided to speak up. Oak's company has been doing poorly, and his salary plummeted. That's why for the past 5 years I've been covering what's missing, but that wasn't enough, and now I'm the one paying our rent. My mother-in-law looked at my husband with surprise. "I'm not just a part-timer. I'm a part-time pharmacist, and the pay is quite good. I'm making more than Oak now." At my words, my husband awkwardly looked away. My mother-in-law's eyes were frantically shifting between my husband and me. "From now on, Birch, you'll be paying the rent. You're going to live here, right? After all the help your grandma was given, it's time for you to take care of her." Birch looked at me with a shocked expression when I dropped the news. Suddenly, he said, "Rent? How much is it?" "It's $5,600. Good luck. Since it seems my role as a mother is over, I don't have an obligation to take care of you anymore. Pull yourself together. You're going to be a father soon." Birch murmured with a shake of his head. "That's impossible." It was Maple who raised her voice upon hearing this. "Wait, weren't we supposed to live here for free, covering rent and living expenses?" I almost burst out laughing. "Don't worry, Maple. You can move to a cheaper place. Oak still makes a decent salary." Hearing this, Maple's face relaxed a bit. "Oh, since I'll be leaving, you Oak's life might still get tough with your mistress, huh?" At that, Maple finally broke down in tears. It was my husband who panicked. "What? What are you talking about?" Maple spoke up, her voice steady but laced with bitterness. "Oh, your mother told me about the new woman. I suppose it's time to end my role as a wife, too." My husband must have thought there was no proof. It hadn't even been 10 days since I left, yet here we were, already facing this. "Wouldn't that hurt Ivy if she heard you?" I added. my tone sharp. But Maple just waved it off. I'll get in touch about that later. When Ivy's name slipped out of my mouth, I saw Oak flinch. He realized I knew everything. His face flushed and he sank his head into his hands. "This is not the time to talk about divorce papers," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Well then, I'll be leaving now. Please, speak to me through a lawyer." With that, I grabbed my bag, ready to walk away. Oak and Birch said nothing, both silent as I made my way toward the door. But then, my mother-in-law's voice rose. She stood up suddenly, slamming her hands on the table. "What the hell? It's all your fault. Our home is in shambles." Her words stung, and I couldn't help but feel my temper flare. "It was you who told me to leave. It was you who said Oak had another woman. You were the one who interfered with my relationship with Birch. All of this is on you." I could feel the heat of frustration rising in my chest. If only I had been more assertive with Birch, perhaps things would have been different. "Birch has nothing to do with this," she shot back. "It's time for you to step up, Oak. He's going through a hard time. You should support him as his wife. Take responsibility as a family member." Her words were like a slap in the face. If she hadn't pushed Birch back into the picture, if she hadn't hinted at Oak's affair, I would still be here, supporting Oak, believing in our family. I turned to Oak, the man who had once been my world. "Where are you, Birch? Why are you still here? It's all your mother's fault." My mother-in-law's lips tightened, her body trembling with frustration. I couldn't bear to stay a moment longer. I slipped past her, leaving the room without another word. Oak agreed to the divorce more quickly than I expected. It seemed my determination had worn him down, and he couldn't argue with the overwhelming evidence of his affair. Shortly after, Birch and Maple moved back to their own apartment, leaving my mother-in-law behind. Oak seemed to be considering remarriage, but Ivy was furious over the alimony and his request that she live with his mother. From what I heard, they were even discussing putting my mother-in-law in a care facility. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but in a way, it made sense. After all the love she'd poured into her son and grandson, it felt sad to think they were ready to abandon her now. Perhaps she had outlived her purpose in their eyes. If my mother-in-law had kept quiet back then and allowed things to unfold naturally, maybe I would still be living in that house, even after the divorce. Birch sent me an apology letter. He wrote about how, as a child, he had longed to be spoiled more, how he couldn't talk to me because of his grandmother's dislike for me, and how happy he was when I attended his school events. It made me think. Maybe I should have reached out to him more. Maybe our relationship could have been different. Despite everything, I silently wished for Birch to find happiness in his life. I've returned to my work as a pharmacist and found an apartment close to my job. I couldn't bear to keep the furniture and appliances I had taken with me, so I had them picked up and disposed of by a junk removal service. Now, without my mother-in-law's constant interference, I feel a sense of peace. For the first time in a long while, I'm living for myself. I want to be happy, not for anyone else, but for me. Is family really worth all the pain? Can loyalty ever outweigh the personal cost? In this story, Willow is confronted by her mother-in-law's harsh rejection, leading her to make the difficult decision to leave her home and start over. The reality is harsh. Willow has always been an outsider in her own marriage, constantly undermined by her mother-in-law, who manipulates situations to keep control. After years of enduring this emotional abuse, she finally realizes that her peace and happiness are more important than staying in a toxic situation. From a psychological perspective, Willow's actions are understandable. She spent years trying to fit in, only to find that no matter how hard she worked, she was never truly accepted by her husband's family. When faced with betrayal both from her mother-in-law and possibly from Oak, Willow chooses herself. It's a hard decision, but one that could be considered an act of self-preservation. Should she have fought harder for her marriage, even after the emotional manipulation from her mother-in-law? Could she have found a way to repair the relationship with Oak, or was leaving the only viable choice? On the other hand, was it the right thing for Willow to take everything she had paid for, even if it seemed justified in her mind? Or did it cross a moral line? What do you think, everyone? Was Willow right to leave everything behind? Or should she have tried to rebuild the relationship with Oak and his family? Do you believe some relationships are simply beyond repair? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep the conversation going, and stay tuned for more stories like this.